So to follow up on my episode from last week when I mentioned that I was going to Indiana for Thanksgiving, we made it 6 hours one way. It was a long-ass car ride, and the kids are at the age where they're really pretty good on the iPads. They can navigate them. They can watch movies on them. They've got that figured out. So it wasn't as bad. There wasn't a lot of pit stops. We did bring our new dog, Austin, so we had to make a amount of pit stops for him. But other than that, the kids actually didn't need to go to the bathroom but nearly as much as the dog needed to go poop or pee. But I digress. And so this past year, my mother-in-law moved to Indiana. She's getting married to her boyfriend, fiance, and that all happened this past weekend. Now, that can create a whole bunch of different emotions. That can create a whole bunch of different experiences. And if you've been listening to the podcast, hopefully you can call my shot on what I'm going to tell you. That this experience turned up a whole pot of different emotions, from new boyfriend, new husband, experiencing the whole thing, being happy, creating conversation, making sure the family stays together, make sure there's no rifts. These are topics that can feel like we're navigating a minefield. So early in my story, when we first got married, my wife's dad died. And that kind of created this whole new chapter of my life and our life that led up to she getting married this past weekend. That it's a whole process of grieving, letting go, starting over, starting to date again. All of that came to a conclusion with her getting married this weekend. All of that has been a long journey. All of that has been a lot of emotions to process. It's not always easy. And so what I want to remind you here today, that when these types of things happen, when the family dynamic is changing, the one piece of advice that's baked over almost 12 years of going through this is working through the emotions, acknowledging them, labeling them. Really be careful not to project them on the people around you, making sure that you identify your emotions, which ones are yours, which ones are others, because it can really be gray in these types of areas. And often what I've learned is there is no real good answer. Sometimes as the husband in a family dynamic that's not fully yours, but you married into it, the one thing that you can be is a rock. Now, I don't say a rock as this inanimate object that has no emotions. I say a rock in something that they can count on, that's sturdy, that's strong, that can be a lighthouse in some cases to help maybe the family dynamic change and grow as it needs to. Family is messy. Family is always changing. And so what I had to learn in this lesson, and my mother-in-law moved to a small town in Illinois at first, and then she made this final trip to Indiana where theoretically this is where she's going to go forever. And it was in the middle of nowhere. It was a long, windy roads. It was exactly where she's always wanted to be. And it was also a really nice place when we did get there, of just being in the middle of nowhere. It reminded me a lot of northern Wisconsin, but in southern Indiana. Just took a long 6-hour drive to get there. This idea of the emotions, acceptance, being the rock, this is how I navigate these tough subjects. These are how I navigate things that I often don't want to do. And if I could wave magic wand, that I would just let's just avoid that. But we don't get that wand. Life doesn't really have that option. All we get is forward. And that is exactly what I've always led with. And that's always what I've focused on through every challenge that comes up. And whatever dynamic happens, the only way through it is through it, acknowledging, feeling, and realizing sometimes you don't need to have the right answer. You just need to be a rock that they can count on to be sturdy, maybe when things get shaky. I hope this helps. I hope this maybe gives you some insight into navigating some turbulent times in your life, whatever they may be. But nevertheless, that is all I have for you today, and I'll be back again with you guys tomorrow.